hate it. This has been something that's been a few months in the works. I've been toying with the idea and getting ready, and over the last couple weeks I've really gotten the incentive up to jump out there and get this going. This first episode I'm going to be featuring my review on the King clone, which a lot of you guys know has been pretty controversial, as well as the Chi-Yu and the Nimbus clones, just for the simple fact that they're cloned all the way down to the markings, almost as bad as the Nimbus itself that was cloned. But yeah, it was kind of funny. I got my hands on my King, and within 24 hours there was posts that the elitist vapors were putting up about the fact that the company making some of these particular clones is already being sued because of the trademark infringement, especially because it's down to the logos and everything, which I will show you that. This first segment is going to basically focus on the King. A few things that I'm also going to cover tonight is some juice flavors, compliments of Evapes. You got the Evapes premium line. I've got 2 out of the 3 of their flavors, and I also have JD Vapors Lime is Key and Fancee Juice's Cloudarita. I may not actually vape all of them on camera, but let me tell you, I've been vaping them for about a week now, and these are some really good flavors, guys. I've got a special surprise towards the end of this review. It's something that, as I understand, has not been reviewed yet, so my inaugural video may put something out there on the map that nobody else has put out there. Alright? So, without further ado, the King. This is a heavy-duty little mech mod. This thing probably weighs about 2 or 3 times the natural. I mean, this thing just outweighs the natural. I mean, this thing outweighs the natural with a battery in it when this thing doesn't have a battery. That's how much heavier this thing is. Solid stainless construction. This thing built like a tank. Great conductivity, silver-plated pins. The top pin's adjustable. You've got an adjustment for making sure that it pinches down on your battery. The bottom screw is silver plated as well. I have been loving this thing, and the fact that the polish, it's not perfect polish, but this thing, really nice looking mech. You got the lion head logo on there, as you can see. You've got a random serial number, which is another one of the things that's kind of shaking the elitists up. And then you flip it on the back side. I know a lot of you guys have seen the pictures online, but you got the King on the back. And then, of course, on the bottom cap, you've got the little logo that's on there. Alright? This thing's accurate to the shape of the nuts for the lock screw and the air holes. I mean, this thing, from what someone that told me, Sean over at Vapor Lounge, compliments to Sean, because that's where this actually came from. He said that one of his buddies actually has one of the Kings, the legit Kings, and he said that looking at it, the only difference is the depth of the logos. That's the only difference he could see. So that's something to say. And for those of you that get this, that aren't really a big fan of the etchings, they're not in there so deep that if you took some time, you could really polish these things out. It's not super deep in there. I mean, if you really had to have it gone, you could polish it out. It might take a little bit of work, but it's doable. But the proof is in the pudding, guys. Not a bad vape. And like I said, guys, the Addy that I've got on top is a clone. It is the Nimbus from Fast Tech. Got to give a shout out on this Nimbus because of the fact that I took it over to Captive Vape and I had John DeVito drill this out. When he punched out the air hole, you can see he did a really good job. That is the stock air hole that came in it. When you get this one from Fast Tech, it will only have the one air hole, and I went ahead and opted to have him just go ahead and drill straight through and add a second air hole, so that way I really open up that airflow, because of the fact that when I'm running on my mechs, like a lot of folks, I am running sub-ohm. This Nimbus setup is 24 gauge Canthal. It's about 3-4 wrap. So be safe, guys. Invest a little bit of money and pick up a high drain battery, so that way if you're running sub-ohm, you're not going to blow yourself up. I don't want to hear another one of these horror stories where someone blew themselves up because they were sub-ohming and overtaxed their battery. There's been a lot of concern and issues about that, and I know it's getting a lot of people in the vape community up in arms, because you got those of us that do chase dragon clouds. Plain and simple fact of the matter is you know, even without going sub-ohm, you can blow really good clouds. I know at the Evapes premiere, I had saw Tucker, and yeah, you guys know who I'm talking about, Tucker the Beast Vapor. He had one of his microcoil setups, and he said even for him, he wasn't blowing the biggest clouds, but those microcoils will put out. So you can run an above sub-ohm microcoil and put out really good clouds. It just comes down to the quality of your build. If you take the time to put the work in and put a quality build out there, even the clones can do it. I mean, I'm walking proof, guys. I may not be the biggest dragon cloud producer out there, and you know, plain and simple, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm still learning. No matter how good you think you are, there's still more tricks to learn, and that's part of the reason why I like going out and socializing with guys like Tucker and a lot of the other folks that I talk to. You know, I got quite a few friends in the Oklahoma vape scene, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this video review, the video review channel, is to help put the Oklahoma vape scene on the map. And let me tell you, these guys are already doing a pretty damn good job without me. So it just comes down to getting out there, having a good community, and doing what we're doing. Get the awareness out there, so that way people aren't stupid and seeing that, ooh, vaping's bad. No, it's not. I smoked from the time I was 17 until I was 35. Hadn't had a way to get off of smoking. This right here's done it for me. I'm going on 2 years without smoking, guys. So, you know, pack-a-day smoker that can basically give it up. And I'll tell you, I've a couple of pinches here and there. What few I've tried have tasted like dog crap. I don't want to go back to smoking. So I'd hate to see this stuff get totally banned out. The FDA needs to get on the ball. Plain and simple. And the rest of everybody else. So, that right there being said, I got to take a vape real quick here. Alright, so let's go ahead and break this thing down so that way you guys can see what I'm working with here. The King, stainless steel construction. It's going to come with the kick ring. I personally haven't been running a kick, just for the simple fact of, as I've said, I'm running a drip addy, and when I'm not running a drip addy, I'm running a Genesis tank, like maybe this one here, my Aga T2. And that's another one to give a shout out to the guys over at Captive Vape. John DeVito drilled that one out for me as well, and I need to rewire it, but I think that even with just having him drill it out, it made a world of difference in the way that it vaped, because it took that tightness out of there, so that way you're actually getting more air into that coil. If you decide that you want to use the kick ring, you can screw it in several locations to be able to use your kick ring. This is what it looks like with the kick ring in place, the way that the Chi-Yu comes with them in the center. I know most of the guys like to basically keep their kick ring either at the top or the bottom, just for the simple fact of you don't have to worry about moving that kick around a lot. But for me personally, I really haven't used the kick. I've gotten lucky, gotten my hands on one with a deal that I set up with Zach when I got my Chi U. But just, I'm not a big fan. You know, if I'm going to run variable, I'm going to run variable. When I run variable, I'm probably going to run either my Tesla or my Evic. Don't really use my Evic a lot just because of how fragile it is. I've heard some pretty bad horror stories with them getting broken. So that one's pretty much mostly used when I'm going out. But let me go ahead and show you. This is the bottom. You can see that nice big silver plated screw that makes contact with the base of your battery. What happens with it, this is set up somewhat different than a lot of mechs that you guys are used to using out there, guys. It doesn't use springs to tension the battery. You actually have to use the screws to do the tension. And the way that it works, as I take that screw off, you can see there's no spring on this side. Also, something else that you guys are going to enjoy seeing too is right there is the air hole for the venting at the top of that cap. Let me take this out so you can actually see through. Now you can see it a little bit better. Nice big vent hole. Alright. The way that this thing's machined out, there's a nice recess that the spring and your bottom falls into, and the spring is on the outside, and that spring is easy to adjust and replace. Now personally, what I like with my King and my Chi U is to keep this tight so that way you don't have to worry about it getting kind of fidgety and sideways, because if you let this thing get too loose, the button will get sloppy and it'll make it outside that little catch pocket, and you'll have to sit there and fidget with it to get it to fire. It also has the lock ring, so that way you can lock it, and good solid sturdy setup on that thing. The threads are pretty smooth for a clone. The other thing that's real interesting about the way this thing is set up is the fact that look how flush that Addy is. That Addy sits flush because this has an adjustable 510 pin. The 510 pin and the connector on for the base for the battery are both silver plated. Let me sit this down so I don't flip it over. Basically what you got here is two screws within one another. Now that I've got that screwed out, you can see that those screws adjust, and as you can see looking inside that 510 connection, there is almost no 510 pin showing, and you adjust that thing up as far as you want it or as low as you want it to be able to seat your Addies flush. Alright, now that I've adjusted it back up, it's quite a bit ways further up. The threading on this thing is solid. I haven't had any issues with anything cross threading or anything along those lines. Honestly, about the only complaint that I've got is the sloppiness on that bottom button if that screw backs off. And because of the way that it makes its adjustments, it's just something that you basically would have to be willing to deal with. This is a much higher end design. It's damn near a 100% replica of the legit King. And I've got to say that the Chi U is pretty well the same. I'm waiting on Zach to give me one of my tubes for it so I can actually run this thing in 18650 mode without any issues, or without having to use the tube off of my King, because they're interchangeable. They're almost identical. There's very little difference in the diameter of the tubes. The threading's the same as well. So I mean, if you wanted to move parts back and forth on these things, you can. But Zach, I want my ring. So it is what it is. But this thing is able to be taken apart. I've got a pretty good idea about the fact that give me a little bit of time and practice with some heat treating, and I think I might be doing a heat treatment on this thing to differentiate my King from everybody else's. I have to say I'm really impressed with this Nimbus clone. The only issue that I've had with it is I need to get some O-rings for it, because apparently these O-rings just aren't sitting in the way that I'd like them to, and you get a little bit of juice leakage from it, as you can see by the fact that I'm going for a paper towel right now. But you know, that right there, very small complaint for an Addy that you can order for $5, $6, $7 off of Fast Tech. And the only thing that you've got to do with it is drill it out and increase the airflow to be able to get a nice cloud maker. And I know a lot of the guys that I've been chatting back and forth with, you've got some of these guys that are pretty heavy duty elitists that, oh, you can't get as good a hit from a clone. Well, you know what, man? It is what it is. You guys see it. I'm sitting here blowing pretty decent clouds. So let me get this thing back together and adjust it back into place. There we go. And like I said, that threading is just smooth. No squeaks. Don't have to listen to it crunchy. Get that 18650 back in there. Get back on the adjustment on the top. See, that's one of the nice things. You make your adjustments, sit everything into place, and the only time you're going to hear any rattlings if your air hole ring, which that's something I didn't show you guys. This ring right here screws down. For those of you that want to use the kick and run a pro tank or a tank that actually has a air hole that breathes through the 510 connection, there are air holes underneath this ring, so that way you can actually use a regular tank. But the vast majority of folks that are going to be running a Mech of this caliber are going to be running a rebuildable dripper or a Genesis style tank, and you're not going to be too interested in that air hole system, just plain simple. But very solid, very sturdy. The price point on this thing's pretty damn good. I'm not going to quote the price for the shop, for the guys over at the Vapor Lounge, but I know I've seen some very reasonable prices on this thing, so jump off and grab you one. Definitely a very good Mech, and I honestly haven't been using much but this except for my natural at work, because of the fact that I don't want to take this guy to the work site and get it all beat up and dinged up. I just like the way that it looks and want to keep it looking nice. So King gets a thumbs up in my book, and since basically the Chi-Yu is almost identical, I'm going to tell you guys, jump off and grab that Chi-Yu if you really like it, because it's in that same boat. I mean, look at that. The Chi-Yu logo's on there. You've got the logo on the back, the random serial numbers on it as well. Once again, on the bottom cap, you've got the Chi-Yu logo down there. I mean, it really makes it hard to differentiate which one's a clone and which one's the real deal. Now I know particularly on this one, this is one of the earlier version clones, and the serial number on it is round numbers, and the newer version actually has the block numbers like what the real Chi-Yu has. So if you guys want to jump out there and get a nice mech mod and not spend a ton of money, the Chi-Yu, the King, and the Nemesis, which I'm hoping to get my hands on one of these Nemesis clones. I've been talking to some guys on Facebook and heard a lot of really good things about it. They're saying that it's a spot-on reproduction as well. I'd highly recommend jumping off on these three particular mechs. I've got a couple of other mechs that I'm going to do some reviews on here pretty soon. The Magneto from Smok, as well as the M16 aluminum clone. I gotta get a hold of Zach and borrow his enzonic cap to show you guys that the enzonic caps will fit these aluminum ones, because I've got it on good authority from him that it does. So if you're worried about stripping out that aluminum 510 on these things, that's something to think about. And you can pick that one up directly when you order it, because I know that they were listing the enzonic style caps on Fast Tech. So that takes care of this portion of the review on the King. Give me just a few minutes, guys, and we're going to be talking juice. I was over at Evapes, and we'll get into that segment in just a few minutes. Alright, guys? Alright, guys, here comes segment 2. Now, last week I had the privilege of being at the Evapes premium juice launch, and I got a bottle of number 22, which they're saying is their dessert vape. And I have absolutely been stuck on this, and so have several other people that I know. Dylan Birch really likes this stuff. Caitlin Tiny Vapor from Mod Envy is so obsessed with it that she blasted through one of these bottles in a week. And apparently Tucker delivered one from David Capel for her, complete with love note and all. So that's pretty good flavor when someone can go through one of these bottles in a week like that. Now that's exactly what I happen to have in my Nimbus at the moment, and you guys have already seen me take a rip on the first segment. This stuff is just phenomenal flavor. Very good vapor production. Absolutely wonderful flavor. You get this on a high heat dripping addy, and them undertones of raspberry have just completely roped me in on this flavor. I'm loving it. For the last week, aside from one day at work when I took some of my Silver Fox from Just Vapes with me, this is all I've been vaping is the E-Vape stuff that I got earlier this week. I got lucky and actually won the number 47. And the number 47, as soon as I tasted it, the first thing that I thought of was a juice that Brian Ferris over here at the Vapor Lounge makes called 1849. It is very similar. It is by no means a clone of that particular juice, because you can definitely taste the difference and know that they're definitely two entities. But the closest thing that I can compare it to is the 1849. And it's such a good flavor. I gave Brian some over at the Vapor Lounge, and he took a couple of mils of it home and he vaped it up all in one night. So probably gonna have to give him a couple more mils of it, although he was whining and crying because I run 24 milligrams nicotine instead of a lower nicotine level like he likes. But considering I'm hooking him up, I'm probably sure he won't complain too much. The other two flavors that I got my hands on courtesy of the folks over at Evapes is Fancee. The Cloudarita, any of you guys that like margaritas, yeah, you're going to have to try this one. I could see myself going out for Mexican food over at the local Mexican restaurant, having a margarita with my dinner, and vaping on some Cloudarita to go with it. This stuff just absolutely blows your mind. How good the flavor is. It's spot on. I mean, you can almost taste the salt. And I actually saw a review that someone put on the Fancee page where they're talking about wishing they could figure out a way to salt their drip tip because it's so close. Really, really good vapor production off of the Cloudarita. One of the cool things, if you do order directly from Fancee, they give you options on the cloud level where you can get normal, heavy, or super cloud. So by getting the super cloud, they punch up the VG ratio, which really knocks the cloudiness into stratospheric levels. Let me go ahead and unscrew this Nimbus and grab my iGo L, because I've been running Lime is Key and Cloudarita out of this one, so the flavor won't be too far off. Make sure I don't need to adjust it. Nope, it's hitting. Throw a few drops in here. Like I said, guys, very, very nice vapor production. And like I said, with the King, the unscrewing and screwing of things and taking things apart, you can see how easy it is for that screw to unadjust. I wouldn't go so far as to say go and break out the pliers or wrenches or anything like that, because you do want that thing to be movable, just in case you need to adjust it up and down a little bit. But plain and simple, the adjustments you're going to be making are going to be in those top caps, to get back to what I was saying in the first segment. But the Cloudarita, just absolutely wonderful, wonderful flavor. And the fourth flavor that I happen to have gotten my hands on is another one that me and Dylan, because I can say with everybody that I've mentioned, great minds really do think alike. I've got the JD Vapor, Lime is Key, and I know Dylan has been posting on Facebook quite a bit about vaping this one up, and this is a spot on key lime pie. And the JD Vapor is, as I understand it, the sister company to Fancee. And the folks at Evapes are the exclusive distributors for Fancee and JD Vapor here in Oklahoma City. So any of you guys that are local here in Oklahoma that don't live too far out and don't want to wait for it in the mail, take a drive on over to Evapes. Go see Courtney, go see David, and the rest of the folks over at the Evape shop. Wonderful, wonderful people. Because, like I said, I was there for the launch party for the Evapes premium line for number 47, number 22, and the other flavor that they have, which I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I can tell you that it is a licorice flavor. I normally don't go for them, but the licorice is subdued in there because there is quite a few flavors, and it's just not overpowering to the point that the licorice is going to kill you. I mean, every once in a while I'll break out a little bit of absinthe to drip, because you don't want to put absinthe in a plastic tank. Tangent, sorry guys. But the absinthe flavors will eat up a tank in a New York second. I actually had an X9 tank that absinthe ruined in 24 hours. It's the fastest tank cracker I've ever seen. But the JD Vapor Lime is Key, absolutely phenomenal flavor. Matter of fact, you can see how much is out of that bottle there. I've put a really good dent into that one. You can taste the crust even. I mean, just wow. Fancee and JD are outdoing themselves. I can't wait to get my hands on some more Fancee and JD flavors. It was really hard to make a choice on which flavors to bring home with me when I was at Evapes last week. So that really says something. And the fact that these 4 flavors, I really have had a hard time putting them down because I do some mixes on my own, and I have several favorites from the guys over here at Vapor Lounge Chickasha that I always keep on hand. And for me to have basically backed off of my normal daily vapes to vape these flavors, yeah, guys, these are really good flavors. And I am talking to David and Courtney on hoping to get those folks out here to the Chickasha Vape Meet for all my locals. I don't know if they're going to come out or if they're going to be kind enough to throw us some samples or maybe some giveaways for the Chickasha Vape Meet next month. But it's in the works, so keep them fingers and toes crossed. And that right there is pretty much going to sum it up for this portion of the review. I've got one more segment coming up. I've got a wonderful little surprise that even I didn't expect. And then we'll basically go with the Vape It or Hate It at the end of it. Alright, guys? So, 1 second, and we'll be right back with the 3rd segment to finish off the inaugural run of Vape It or Hate It. Alright, 3rd segment. Now, when I happen to be hanging out with Zach over at the Vapor Lounge, he has a tank, because he's got me a nice double whammy going here. He had his hands on a new tank that those of you that are running variable and are interested in the pro tanks, you guys are going to like this. I got my hands on the new Smok PBC version 1. They're basically billing it as Pyrex Bottom Coil Clearomizer Mega version. Now, you can take a look at that big bad boy. That is a pretty good sized tank. That thing probably holds about 5 mils of liquid. Alright? Give you a really good idea. The DCT locking tanks, you can see it's shaped pretty similar. The one thing that it has the difference of is it looks like a DCT tank, but by no means is it a DCT, because the DCT is a cardo tank. And for those of you that know me, I will typically run a Pro Tank 2 for going out and hanging out when I don't want to be bothered with a dripper, because for obvious reasons, I mean, when you're dripping, you don't want to be carrying a big old bottle like this. And it's cumbersome in the pockets. So to be able to take a tank like this that's got 5 mils worth of juice that's going to last you easily all day. I mean, if you wanted to take this thing to work and work a 10 or 12 hour day, it would probably make it through, unless you're sitting there vaping on it the entire time you're working, which I don't know too many people that can do that unless you work at a vape shop. And oh my god, working at a vape shop, you got vape sitting around all day. So it is what it is. Get the battery into my trusty Tesla here. Get it fired up. Kick that on up into a decent voltage. I've got about a 2.1 coil in here. I'm not sure what it's supposed to actually be at because of the fact, oh, it's running at 2 ohms. Not your Dragon Cloud, but definitely a nice vape. Does what it needs to. Alright. Now, the details on this thing that are really interesting is, first and foremost, like the Pro Tank 2, 510 drip tips, interchangeable, so you can customize it. The way that this thing's set up, it has an acrylic outer sleeve and a Pyrex inner sleeve. So those tank cracker juices that I was mentioning earlier with that Pyrex inner sleeve are going to be okay to run with this. And one of the cool things about having this plastic outer sleeve is it's going to help protect that glass tank. So if you drop it, it's going to be a lot harder to break it. Pretty solid stain. I believe it's stainless construction. Definitely chromed out. One of the things that I really like about it is the fact that it is a darkened chrome finish. I mean, you can look at that compared to the Pro Tank, or actually that's not the Pro Tank, but compared to the DCT tank that I was showing off, and you can see the difference in the chrome finish. It's a slightly darker chrome, so it'll fit on quite a few different mods for the finish. The other thing that's really cool too is you can get it in different colors. So if you want flavor to go with your flavors, brighten it up, that's also an option, guys. The other thing that really amazed me about this tank is when you take the bottom off of it, like the way that the Kangers come off, you can look at that coil and it is almost identical to a Kanger coil. And I have it on good authority from Zach that a lot of the times the Kanger wicks will work in this. You're not going to get a 100% guarantee on that. I haven't taken the time to test it yet myself, but I'll give you guys an update because I kid you not, I held it up side by side and was amazed with the fact that they are almost identical in shape, size, and finish to the Kanger coils. So it would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form that they are going to work. The only issue that I've had with this tank is, like any tank that you feed off of the threading in the 510, you're going to get a little bit of leakage, you're going to get a little bit of seepage just off of condensation. Also making sure to keep that coil screwed in tightly so that way it doesn't leak. But really good. The second portion of the double whammy on this is Zach put in my hands a new flavor called Black Gold, and it really reminds me of my Great White flavor that I blend. And I won't give you guys the secret to what my Great White is, but the one thing that both of these flavors have in common is Bavarian cream. And it's what kind of threw me for a loop because Zach's not a big fan of Bavarian cream. So for Zach to have jumped off on one of my tangents, that's pretty unusual. But this flavor is really good. I'm loving it, especially considering it's so close to my Great White that you guys, if you like Bavarian cream or you're a fan of eclairs, get over to the Vapor Lounge Chickasha, look at Zach and tell him, hook it up with that Black Gold. And he actually told me the mix that I've got right now is just an off-the-cuff rough mix. So when he finally gets this thing refined, I'm loving the idea of seeing where he goes with it. So holler at Zach and the guys over at Vapor Lounge Chickasha and check out these PBC tanks and that black gold recipe. I think you guys will be really impressed. So basically, to sum it all up, guys, as far as vape it or hate it, I'm freaking saying vape it on every last little thing I've been reviewing tonight, because the King is, bar none, a top caliber mech mod. And for the fact that you're able to get a King, a tank, and if you're gonna go sub-ohm, a high drain battery for less than the price of what a legit King is gonna cost you, I would highly recommend jumping on it. You cannot go wrong with this mod. Wonderful hits. I mean, you can tell the difference in the resistance drop between this one and other mechs. It definitely is very well machined, and just, I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. The Nimbus clone from Fast Tech, the one that I particularly have is the one with the Nimbus logo. I've got several other drip addies that I'm going to feature along with that Nimbus at some point soon, because I've got multiple versions of the Nimbus. I've also got the Trident, and I've also got the Helios, which I will be showing you guys. I'll also be showing you guys the Igo L. I'm also talking to a person over in Germany by the name of John Brunner, who is doing some really high-end upgrades on the Igos. He's got some big bore punch-outs that he does, and he's also got some stage 2 and stage 3 upgrades for the RSSTs. So hopefully John Brunner from JB Steamworks gets with me real soon, so we can get some product placements out for him and try and get him a little bit further into the American community, because he is doing some really gorgeous work, and I'm really dying to get my hands on some of his stuff. So looking forward to that. The vape it or hate it on the Evapes juice, absolutely vape it. The biggest complaint that I can come up with on any of those 4 flavors isn't even a legitimate complaint of the juice itself, because the Fancee and the JD come with the childproof style tops instead of droppers. So with the Fancee, I happen to have one of these short style droppers on hand that I was able to get into it. I've got one more dropper, but it's being used for another flavor, so don't want to mess with that at the moment. So for JD, what I've been doing is get yourself a syringe, so that way you can pull some out of the bottle and throw a little bit into a smaller bottle to carry around with you. And that way you don't have to worry about carrying the big bottle around, and you don't have to worry about messing up your flavor by getting it into the heat or dropping the bottle and breaking it or anything along those lines, because you've only got a small amount that you're carrying around with you. So that saves you the headache. So I mean, seriously, it's not even a legitimate complaint, guys. So Evapes juice, Fancee, and JD Vapor, vape it, guys. Loving it. Absolutely loving it. Just I can't rave enough about these flavors. The PBC tank, I would definitely vape it, and I am definitely enamored with the look of it. I mean, that thing just looks incredible on top of that Tesla. And the fact that you've got the Pyrex glass and the stainless construction with a interchangeable drip tip to be able to customize the look, absolutely wonderful features. And like I said, black gold, he built it good. Definitely black gold it is. So get over there and give it a try. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this first inaugural video, and hope I didn't make too many elitists mad out there, because part of what I am striving to do is be able to show some of the vapors on a budget that you do not have to have a $200 Mech or a $250 Pravari to be able to be satisfied with what you're vaping. When my $100 Tesla and $10 or $15 tank will give you a decent enough vape that you're going to get satisfied, that's saying something. When you've got a clone that is well below the price of the original, to the point where you can come up with an entire setup for less than the price of what the original is and be able to knock off Clouds, yeah guys, you can do it. So you don't have to think about spending $200, $300, $400, $500 for a setup to be able to vape and feel accomplished. And you know, that's the other thing that I've been trying to say to everybody. You know, you don't have to be an elitist to be happy in the vape community, because that's one of the things I love about everybody I've been talking to lately. You know, perfect example are some of the guys that I've been rubbing elbows with, especially like last week at the Evapes launch. Dylan runs BS Unlimited, and he is the man behind the Oklahoma City Vape Meets, and he is an absolutely personable person. I enjoy talking to him because he's got a lot of knowledge, and I just love to be able to see the mechs and the mods that the guy's running, because he happens to have a really killer collection. And it's nice to be able to check in with him and say, hey man, you know, that mod that you're running, or that one that you posted a picture of, what do you think of it? Would it be worth me wasting my hard-earned money to be able to check that thing out? And you know, he'll sit down and BS with you, no problem. Even Tucker Vapor, Tucker the Beast Vapor, Caitlin, all these guys, I've sat down, BS'd it up with them, and they're approachable, friendly, and will help when people need help. And the thing that we're all seeing lately, especially last night on Facebook, is you've got some of these guys that are running around taking advantage of people that have those kind and generous hearts. So we need to protect the vaping community, guys. And you know, that's a tangent that I hadn't intended on going off on, but you know, everybody that I talk to and everybody that I hang out with is almost like a second family, you know. And considering my kid's a couple thousand miles away in California, it's nice to have that support from that second family. So you guys keep it up, show some love, vape it or hate it. I'm done with my tangent. You guys have a good one. More videos coming at you. I'm going to be doing a video safety, a safety video on batteries, the tanks, and I've got a couple of other mech mods and some other things that I'm going to be showing you guys. So keep your eyes open. Vape it or hate it's here to stay.